Hello, everyone, and welcome to Accountability Score Improvement, the podcast where we don't give a shit about our listeners. Isn't that right, Will, my co-host, my name being AJ, and your name being Will, since no one knows that yet? I think I screwed up this intro already. Fuck.
All
We're
right.
just gonna keep going. Let's keep going.
Just keep going. Keep riding. Hello,
No,
everybody,
no.
and welcome to the Accountability Score Improvement Podcast, the Dungeons and Dragons slash tabletop slash nerdy slash geek slash sexy podcast hosted by our lovable host, Will, that being me, and
The other guy, me, being AJ. Two
see,
letters.
that wasn't so hard, was it, AJ? God.
Yeah. Well, as you can tell from our names and our nerdy voices, we are just two white men who just love nerdy shit and love playing D&D. We play together every week, and we figured we just want to talk about that kind of stuff more and have a place to do that. And so we said, let's start this podcast, and
Let's do it.
yeah, I mean, here we are, first episode
Yeah.
1.
I'm so intimidated. What if they don't like us, AJ?
I don't give a shit, bro. I
Oh
don't.
my
I don't
God.
care.
My
This
God.
is a podcast for us, not
Yes,
for you. It's for
that's
us.
right.
It's called. We call it accountability score improvement because if you're a D&D player, you know of the ability score improvement thing. But accountability is because we both just need something to keep us accountable and hang out with each other and talk, because otherwise we're both just going to be very lonely and by ourselves. So we need something in our lives to. This is turning really sad really quick, but that's okay.
It's turning really sad. So let's get into some of our topics today. We actually have 3 topics, all of them self-serving. But today we're going to be going into some pretty broad discussions. We're going to be talking about our possible recasting for the second D&D movie. For those of you who don't know what D&D is, like my father, who may or may not be listening to this as we speak, is Dungeons and Dragons.
Should I watch my language if your dad's listening?
No, shut the fuck up. Just
okay, cool.
Have fun. Have fun. Okay, calm down. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. He may watch. This is for us. We're just gonna sit here and drink.
He might be the only watcher. That's honestly likely at this point, but that's okay.
Yeah. But we're gonna be talking about our possible pitches for the Dungeons and Dragons sequel, the highly acclaimed, not successful necessarily movie of last year. We're gonna be kind of going into some of Van Richten's guide to Ravenloft. We're going to be kind of taking a dive in there in a segment we call Tabletop Tourists. And then we're just going to do shameless plugs after that, because honestly, who are we if not sellouts? Just corporate shills.
Oh, immediately, yes. You fan money in front of my face, I'm in.
I'm a good old-fashioned whore for a good old-fashioned dollar.
Right. So let's start with our first topic, which is our D&D movie sequel. I think the way that we kind of pitch this is, let's do another D&D movie, but let's say in the same world, let's do all the same stuff, but let's take an entirely new party. Let's make a new party. We already saw the old party, the one led by Chris Pine, and a lot of them came to their storied conclusions, or at least something nice enough. So I really liked the movie. I don't know why it wasn't extremely successful, but I loved it. I thought it was really fun.
Oh yeah, I had a grand old time. The cast was great. Honestly, I thought it was super fun, very loyal to Dungeons and Dragons, which makes sense, especially since they produced it. But yeah, I thought it was a great time. They had plenty of good practical effects, different races and creatures and spells, and I think they even went into the Underdark at one point. It was They didn't say it specifically, but there was lava and there was brain creatures. It was good.
Fat dragon.
Oh, that chungus of a dragon.
I forget his name, but he is in D&D lore and all that stuff.
Wait, really? That's an actual dragon in lore?
He's an actual dragon from D&D lore.
Oh.
I forget his name. I
Let's
do
just
not
call it.
know.
His name is Chungus. That's
Chungus.
official. He
I mean,
will.
yeah, that's what the internet would say. Yeah.
He's going to be the mascot for the show. I called him recently. He signed a contract. We own his likeness,
Oh,
and
sweet.
also the AI likeness. So when he dies, we could still use him.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
yeah, but anyway, the idea is that we still have it in the same universe. So if we wanted Chris Pine or really any of the other cast members who I feel so bad for not remembering their names, but
Let's see. Michelle Rodriguez,
yep.
Renee Jean something.
Mm-hmm. Sing it.
Uh, that's the guy. He's the one that's probably the easiest to bring back because he's kind of like a wandering paladin.
Yeah,
Um,
he was
Somebody
fun.
that
Really,
always
any
walks in a
of
straight
them.
line.
Yeah, so if they wanna come through, they can totally do that. If not, we're just gonna have our own new cast, sort of like an anthology series, to
Yeah.
make it fun. But we realized we don't want to just do the same classes as before, and we want to get weird with it because, Hasbro or who owns Dungeons and Dragons now? Hasbro.
Let's see. Wizard of the Coast. I think
Yeah.
it might be Hasbro. Yeah.
Yeah, listen, Hasbro came to us and said, AJ, Will, you are the guys. So really get who you want for this movie and tell us what you want to do with it. And so we have a couple of, classes here that we are ready to cast, as well as sort of pitches for the villain or kind of main conflict that they're going to be facing. So here we actually have a couple of different classes. You want to read them off for me, AJ?
Yeah. Let's see. We got basically we picked all the ones that weren't in the last movie. So we got
Mhm.
Artificer, Cleric, Fighter, Monk, Ranger, Warlock, and Wizard. That's all the classes excluding like the Bard, Barbarian, Sorcerer, Druid, and the Rogue that were in the last movie, and Paladin.
Yeah. Yeah, Paladin. Paladin can come back. Like I said, he could probably just be in the background and is like, "Hello, I'm hot." But I don't know. I remember things he said, but that was all I saw when I looked into his eyes. So, can you blame a guy?
No, not at all.
Right.
It's a beautiful man.
So
Beautiful man.
so let's start with Artificer. AJ, if you had to describe what an Artificer is for kind of the uninitiated, what is that in Dungeons and Dragons? It's kind of a complicated class.
Right. So Artificer is essentially like the tech genius, like the magic item. So essentially, they are the class in Dungeons that in D&D that will make objects magic, and will take those and they'll use them for their adventures, or they'll give them to the other party members. They're like the gadget guy, the guy that builds shit, like the Hephaestus guy. If you're a fan of Greek mythology, that's essentially what an artificer does. It's that.
Yeah. So basically, if we were doing a heist or some kind of adventure, this is who we'd cast for the tech guy. So, AJ, I would love to hear who you have for your options as the artificer.
So I only have one that I came up with for this one. I I had a couple others on the list, and then I was like, no, they'd fit better other places. So I came up with one guy, and it's William Jackson Harper.
Hmm.
He's
William
the guy from The Good Place, and he's in Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. He's the dude that can read minds.
Oh, he's great. I love him. He's fun.
I feel like he plays like the nerd really well. Like he's kind of like he is kind of like the techish guy, and he has you know and also like recently he has like the physique to be in an action movie.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like he would be a good just like go to, like, all right, I got the gadgets. He kind of plays the grumpier characters a lot of the time, and is just kind of like he plays this like very much over everything, over everyone else kind of persona. And I figured he could probably nail the persona of an artificer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great choice. I think he's hilarious. I've seen a little bit of The Good Place. I've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, although
Okay.
I'm sure, we will watch that at some point. Check out episode 35. We are never going to watch it on the podcast.
No, I've already
Um,
watched it.
yeah, no. And you can just give me the rundown later. But no, I think he's a good choice. My choice for Artificer, I'm looking through my notes. This is not my actual pitch, but I put Steve Harvey.
I saw that and I was like, what the can he even act?
Yeah, he can't not act. Could you imagine Steve Harvey is just like, I got this enchanted, microphone. Have it. Like,
I'm just imagining like one of the other party members going up to Steve Harvey and be like, Steve, I need a I need
his name's
I need a
Steve
big.
in the
Oh, of
movie.
course. He can only play himself. And he's like, Steve, Steve, I really think that I'd like a magic dildo or something. And then Steve Harvey just like turns to look at the camera with his like deadpan expression, like, what? Just that whole thing that Steve Harvey looked and kind of just it breaks the fourth wall in a way, and he turns into a
Yeah.
game show host.
He just kind of looks around like, just very disappointed. But no,
For our
my
audio
actual
listeners, if there are any, he just turned his head side to side and looked back and forth a lot.
sassily. But no, my casting for the Artificer is Reese Darby. Some of you may not know Reese Darby. He was in Flight of the Conchords, as well as the tour guide in Jumanji. He's also a stand-up
Oh,
comedian.
okay.
I'm not sure if I mentioned that already, but he has like a very like energetic, sort of enthusiastic sort of vibe to him that I think can really go a long way, especially for an inventor type, for somebody who is constantly creating magical items or sort of working things together. He can also be a very goofy, sort of the comic relief in a lot of ways, because I think everybody can have like their funny lines, but we need at least one genuinely funny person on the cast to kind of make it work.
Oh yeah.
And I think he can do that. I just imagine he's riding a witch broom with like bicycle pedals.
Yeah,
Like how he still has to like manually do it.
I think we cast like the two ends of like the artificer spectrum. Like I cast the more like serious one that kind of just like looks at the party and is like, I'm just tired of all your crap. And you cast the one that's like, no, I'm gonna make like really funny crap and just make it hilarious. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
awesome.
totally go kooky with it. But which I think your side of it is definitely more like our friend Jack, who we play Dungeons and Dragons with, who is an artificer, and he's very much like, I'm not a hero, never was. Like he's basically just doing Snake from Metal Gear.
Yeah, he's very serious. He's very like, we have to like go for the stuff and you guys need to stop messing around. But then he's also super horny recently, so I
Yeah,
don't know what's going on.
I hope he gets some help because it's getting serious.
Yeah.
Colin, if you're listening, our DM, get on that. Next up, we got the cleric. AJ, run us down for cleric. I only know the cleric as sort of the medic of Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe you can enlighten me a little bit.
So essentially, the cleric, even more than the paladin, is essentially a holy warrior. So a cleric follows a deity, and they pray to that deity in order to gain their power, and they kind of prove their loyalty to that deity, and the deity keeps granting them more and more power and stuff like that. The misconception that I think that you kind of have played into is that the cleric is always a healer. Is always a healer. The cleric, yes, is probably the best class in the game for healing, but I view it more as like this holy warrior. As I said, they're the chosen of their god. There are not a ton of clerics of like the same deity. There's like one cleric of a deity. They're like the chosen one for that god, and they go out and they fight the god's battles for them to further that god's goals, whether it be good or evil. But they are just really holy, really devout people, and that's kind of how they are granted their power.
All right, nice. And who'd you choose for your holy warrior there, bud?
Yeah, I threw William Jackson Harper back on the list for this one.
Oh,
That's my secondary choice. I just was like, yeah, why not? I threw it on there. Um, my other choice is Gemma Chan. Gemma
Mm,
Chan.
let me.
This is the girl who played Cersei in Eternals
Oh
and
yeah,
several other stuff
and
too.
she was the cousin in Crazy Rich Asians. She was really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I figured like she has the. I mean, she has the action movie experience, so she's
Hmm.
done that. She has the but she's not like super. She's not extremely sought after for this.
Mm,
So like, she would. I think she'd do something like this, and I feel like she has the softness or kind of like the seriousness for like the role of like a cleric, and could really it really could go a lot of different directions with what she can do. Her range is pretty wide from what I've seen, but she can also be a badass, which is I
yeah,
think something that we need to see a cleric be is a badass.
yeah. We just gotta just they come in, they do like a kick flip and wheelie and cartwheel, and then just
Yeah,
punch, and then they say, closing time, boys and girls, pew pew, and then they shoot them with their gun. Yeah, guns are in Dungeons and Dragons.
sometimes.
Sometimes. No, I'm just joshing, but I do like that casting choice. And yeah, her portrayal, I think, would be more experienced, like more kind of,
Yeah. I could see her being like the main character or the secondary main character,
yeah, yeah.
like or like the main love interest for the main character, something like I think she'd be one of the more central figures in the plot.
It's funny you say that because my cleric is also kind of more of a main character, like focal point of the story.
Okay.
And for that, I chose Maya Hawke. Uh,
Okay, yeah.
Maya
Stranger
Hawke,
Things.
I think, yeah, of Stranger Things, and daughter of Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, very talented actress.
Oh, right, yeah.
Very good. Love her in pretty much anything that she's in. Still young, so we could kind of like milk some sequels out of her if she wants to come back. But also, I think kind of a younger cleric, somebody who's kind of called to a certain, you know, role or duty would kind of be good. And that way we can introduce kind of some of the weirder and crazier stuff in Dungeons
Yeah,
and Dragons too, especially with some of my later castings. Because it's just like, oh, you don't know about this? Well, here's this, and this. Like we need like a gateway character to kind
yeah,
of get all of that crazy stuff on the board because honestly, the first movie did pretty good with introducing stuff, but it was still kind of like surface level. There's a lot of weird
yeah.
stuff in D&D that we
So
can
the one
get
thing
to.
about the first movie is that all of the characters were like established adventurers at the very least. They
Yeah.
might they might have not been like the most seasoned, like the sorcerer, played by the guy from Detective Pikachu.
Yep.
I don't know.
Let
I
me.
love him.
Yeah.
Justice Smith. Justice Smith, right?
Yeah. He's great. I
He's great. Love
honestly.
him.
Yeah.
He's probably the most inexperienced, and I think that, but he was still, he's still been a sorcerer. He still knows things about the world. I think it would be interesting. I think a cleric is a perfect setup for someone like new to adventuring, like Maya Hawke or even Gemma Chan. I think could both play like they are like visited by a god, a mysterious figure in their dream, and then all of a sudden they got these powers, and that could be the whole setup for the movie.
Yeah.
Is like they are thrust on this quest, and they're like an ordinary person or whatever. But I actually have another pitch for that later as well. So
All right, perfect. But we'll leave it at there for now. The fighter, we have the fighter class, pretty straightforward, just a real Conan type, just swinging swords and fighting lords. Um, this one, I think, is pretty basic. We can kind of move through like the monk and the fighter, pretty
yeah,
quickly. My casting was actually I had Jenna Malone uh, from the Hunger Games Catching Fire movie, as well as she was in a couple of movies like Saved in the early 2000s. I think she did a lot in the Hunger Games movies that kind of sold me on kind of like a badass warrior who doesn't necessarily care uh, about like what other people think, but also has like that emotional core to it. Um, I think she could work. I also had Lashana Lynch. Forgive me if I'm not saying that correctly, but she was one of the warriors in The Woman King, one of the main ones. She was also
Oh
in
yeah.
the last Bond movie. Plus, she was Miss Honey in the Matilda the musical movie.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we got multiple skills for Lashana. But both of those I think are pretty good. I would be happy with either, honestly. I think Lashana has
Yeah.
more of the physical prowess because she can mess it up, tear it up. But I don't have a big big stake on either of them necessarily for this part.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sold that, like, I mean, if we're picking our party, I'm not sold that fighter would be one that we would necessarily pick. It's just
It's a little boring.
it's the simplest class. I'm not gonna
Yes,
say the
nothing
most
wrong with
boring,
that. Nothing wrong with simple.
but it is the most simple class. Yeah, I've never heard of Jenna, what's her name, before,
Malone.
because
It's all right.
I never watched the second Hunger Games movie. I only saw the
How
first.
dare you?
Well, I was raised in a household where we're supposed to read the book before, and I started reading Catching Fire, and I didn't like it, so I was like, great, I'm not gonna watch the movie then.
Yeah, good point. Valid point.
Um,
At least you're honest.
yeah, but I my pick for fighter I is pretty similar to to Jenna Malone. I think I picked Morfydd Clark, which is the woman from Rings of Power, the one that plays
Hmm.
Galadriel in Rings of Power. I figured like
Oh,
she's a badass. Like a lot of people didn't really like her character in it, but I think she was fine. I think she played it
yeah.
as well as the script was written.
Oh yeah.
So I think she also has again that action movie experience, and that can be just that aloof badass that kind of just
Yeah.
doesn't really give a crap, give a
Plus,
shit.
you get a
Sorry.
British accent in there. You need at least one or two British accents in the movie. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I got a couple later. Yeah.
Yeah, she can even be an elf again. Or, you know what? Let her be a furbolg. just just put a cow nose on her. For those of you who don't know, look up furbolg, Firbolg. You're gonna
Mhm.
laugh your ass off for like 30 seconds.
They are great D&D characters. I mean,
Oh, they're
but
so
they
fun.
are so like I mean, Caduceus Clay um, from Critical Role is probably the most famous one, but yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact though, I explained Critical Role to my dad recently and said that they basically sold out Wembley Stadium, and he was like, "What? How does that
Oh yeah.
work? Who's paying money for that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Dad." He's like, "I wouldn't pay money to watch anyone talk in a giant stadium. I come for music." And I'm like, "Fair enough. I wouldn't necessarily pay for it either. I do like Critical Role, but not enough to shill money."
I I'd have to if I ever did that, I'd have to be caught up on whatever
Yeah,
they're doing that day,
there's so
and that's
much.
just
There's so
impossible to
much,
do.
dude. They
I
basically they have so many like different lores and one shots and supplements, and I just can't.
I did watch all of season two. I finished it before
Oh,
the end of this last year. I was very proud of myself. It took me like 3-4 years to do,
oh, God bless you.
but I did it. It's like 141 episodes that are all like 4 hours each.
Oh my God.
I spent so much of my life on them, but I don't regret it. No regrets.
Nope, I don't regret either. I got all the way through season one, and
Oh
then I
wow.
cut off halfway through season two, and then I just thought to myself, it's for other people now. It's genuinely it's bigger than me because I still watched it. Like I remember I was there for the finale of campaign one. I was like 15,
Wow.
yeah, but it was
I
like,
didn't even know about D&D back then.
yeah, I was just figuring it out. But moving on, we have the monk. Think Kung Fu Panda, but more spiritual.
Yeah,
That's pretty straightforward.
yeah, like you're Jackie Chan, like guy who punched things a lot. You know, there are like elements from like ninjas and stuff like that. Basically, like they have attuned themselves to their with their body so
Yeah,
much that they can pretty much do whatever they want.
yeah. Honorary mention for casting Jack Black. There is a world where I could see him just he's in there. He can
I
sell
think
it.
he'd have to be a barbarian. I think he'd have to be a barbarian.
Yeah, barbarian would be. Well, he could be a bard barian.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you
Now
need
we're
to
on the same page,
enunciate.
actually. Wow. Wow.
You need to enunciate a little bit more.
Sorry. I need to work on that. Yep.
You're messing up the whole show, AJ. I'm gonna pull you out of
God.
that screen, bring
Oh
you
man,
into
we're
here.
canceling it after episode 1.
Ugh. But I for Monk, I put Donnie Yen from Rogue One and Ip Man.
Okay. Who was he in Rogue One?
He was I think it was Chirrup.
Oh, is he
Chirrup?
the blind guy?
Yeah, he is. But he's a good martial artist. My second choice was Keanu Reeves. But
Yeah.
I think Donnie Yen is just like, well, let's just get some free stunts in there. He can do it. He's good.
Keanu Reeves would be great. He would steal the show,
Yeah,
but that might not be a bad thing.
I think that's tough.
That might not be a bad thing. I mean, it would get people in seats for sure.
Right.
I think both of those are great choices. I think both of them can pull off the physicality of it. Jack Black would be funny, but yeah. I picked this is kind of more of a funny pick, but I picked Liam Neeson.
Oh. I want to hear this.
So he's okay. I will say, not to spoil it a little bit. He is also on my list for villains.
Oh, he's the twist.
I don't think that these are the same character. That he would be like the monk and the villain. I think he would be a different one. But I just, I put on for both. The Liam Neeson, like he's Qui-Gon. He has that, like, he can be like that older monk that just kind of is like very wizened, and like he can be just kind of like an old, like unassuming man, and then all of a sudden he busts out and he just like punches someone 15 times in like 2 seconds, and like and like sends them flying or whatever, and all of a sudden he just turns into this badass.
Yeah, he's also a little old. He's a little old. So wait, let me actually look up real quick how old Liam Neeson is.
I think I looked it up. He's 71.
Yeah, he's 71. This man also occasionally pees his pants like casually, so that's hilarious. He's in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's also the type of actor that would like pretty much do anything for fans. Like the amount of times that he's come back just to do Qui-Gon stuff.
Yeah,
without question. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun time. I think everyone enjoys it, and we love having him.
Plus, he's
So
got
you know
that
what?
Irish accent.
Yeah, you know what? Pull his SAG card out. We are casting him.
For something, at least.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Next up, is it the Ranger next?
Yeah, it's the Ranger. Now this one, you and I talked about this, and I think it's just because we thought it was cool. Aldous Hodge.
Oh yeah.
From the Black Adam movie. He played Hawkman, but he's also been in plenty of stuff. He was also in Friday Night Lights. Very good. Yeah, just giant buff guy. Just give it to him.
Dude,
He's very wise. He has great range. He can play wise, stoic.
Have you ever seen the TV show Leverage? He basically plays the artificer of Leverage. So
Leverage. I have not. I'm going to put that in the notes for watch later to join the Aldous Hodge cinematic universe.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. I think he's a great actor. I think that the fact that the Black Adam movie bombed just makes me want to like give him something else, because I feel like I never watched the Black Adam movie, but I'm sure he was great.
Oh, he was amazing. I loved him.
And the fact that the rest of the movie sucked is not his fault, and I want to make sure that like his career is still saved.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So I got a couple of my picks for Ranger. I got 2 of them for this one. So this first one is more of like the Aragorn style Ranger, like more of the melee Ranger. If we didn't really go through the class, Ranger's a class that's basically like guy who like lives in like the forest and like or hunt things, like has a little bit of nature magic, and a lot of times has a bow but doesn't have to. All that stuff. So this is more of like the Aragorn Ranger, where he has kind of fights more with like a sword or something like that.
Okay,
combatant. Joel McHale, who's the guy from Community.
He'd be funny. He would
be funny.
And he's fit. He's fit.
He's ripped as hell.
For a guy his age, looking good. Good on you, Joel.
My other one, it's kind of similar vibes, like also comedic actor. This could be more of like the ranged fighter, though, more like the sneaky one. Jaleel White, which is
Oh,
Urkel,
you know what?
but
Just
he's
give it
buff
to
now.
him.
He's
Yeah,
buff now.
I know he's buff. I've seen him.
But he would be the comedic one. He would be cracking all the jokes. I don't know. I thought of him and I was like, that'd be funny. I put him on the list.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
And did he do that? Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Um, yeah, I like that. Next up we have Warlock. Just think fighter with magic. And instead of having like a god or patron that they worship, it's a demon or some other worldly thing.
Yes.
Imagine they worship Cthulhu and they have a sword.
Essentially, they made a deal to get their magic. So unlike the cleric who like worships their god or deity or whatever, the cleric or the warlock found some sort of entity, whether it be Cthulhu or a demon or an archfey or a giant kraken. There's a lot of options. Essentially, they like were like, "Hey, I'll give you my soul, or I'll give you this if you give me magic,
Yeah.
or if I do this for you and stuff like that." So they could worship Cthulhu. So yeah. I'll start with my pick. So this, if we went with this guy, I think he would be the main character of the story that I'm thinking of. Because I think that this guy, he made a deal with a devil. There are multiple devils in D&D, if you didn't know. Made a deal with a devil, and that would probably be like the big old villain. And to get power, he made a bum deal, kind of got tricked into it. And I picked Anthony Ramos, which is he was in the Heights movie. He also was in the most recent Transformers movie, I believe, as the main character in that. Never seen
Anthony
any of
Ramos. I do enjoy a good Ramos.
I think he could do it. I think he like has that. He's a little older now, but he has that like younger quality to him where he can.
Yeah, he has that pep in his step. He's got that vibe.
And I think like
That's
he
good.
could play this like, oh, he got tricked and then like leads this party into a quest into the nine hells or whatever.
Also, just a side tangent for fantasy, looks great with long hair. Just gonna put that out there. But yeah, I think that's good. Mine was John Boyega.
Okay.
Who already made a deal with the devil named Disney. But I think he'd be great. Plus, he hasn't really done anything in a little bit. He was in The Woman King. He was in They Cloned Tyrone, but those were the only things I've seen him in recently. But I loved what he does. I think he's a really good actor. Plus, if you're going for like a little bit darker, you can kind of get that with him, with his range. I think he's really talented.
Use his British accent.
Oh my gosh, let him use his British accent, man. He's got a good one.
Although we make fun of him for signing a deal with Disney, but as we said at the beginning of the episode, we would corporate shell out for Disney in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, call us.
I will play anything in a Marvel movie, anything at all.
Please let me be Captain America 5.
I will be a variant of Spider-Man. I don't care. I will have 2 seconds of screen time. Just let me do it.
I'll say Hail Hydra. I don't even have to mean it, but I'll say it.
I don't care that the Marvel movies suck now. I just want to do it. I love them anyway.
Just give me an infinity ring.
We'll talk about the Marvel movies.
Yeah. John Boyega, I think is not a bad idea. I also put Noah Centineo, but I was like, nah.
Who is that?
To All the Boys I Loved Before. He was also Adam Smasher and Black Adam.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. I like John Boyega more. He's more into it. Also, I'm just thinking about right now, Charlie Cox. Charlie Cox, I think, would make a great warlock.
Charlie Cox could do anything. He's done fantasy before.
Stardust.
Yeah, I saw that a couple years ago for the first time. He's done fantasy before. He is Daredevil. He's probably busy being Daredevil, if we're being honest.
You know what? We can't get him. I changed my mind. Leave him.
We probably can't get him.
You know what? Boo on you, Charlie. You're great, but boo on you.
I saw something about him recently where from playing Daredevil, he accidentally got a habit of not looking people in the eye, and
Yeah.
it cost him like an audition.
Yeah.
I think he
It was Han
auditioned
Solo.
for Han Solo, and he like was so used to just like staring at the ground and looking past people, and the director was like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Although to be fair, I don't think he would have made a good Han Solo, but that's beside the point.
Well, the Solo movie was as
I
it was
liked it.
anyway. I thought it was fine. I thought
It
it was
was
fine.
fun.
I thought it was fun. It was
Yeah.
not a. Was it a good movie? I don't know. But it was a
Yeah.
fun movie.
It was fun but flirty.
Yeah, Amelia Clark looks great.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
I know.
All right, final one, wizard. We don't even need to describe what this is, but just have a wizard. And I don't know what you're feeling on this, AJ, but I think we gotta throw one. We gotta throw a dog a bone here. We gotta put Joe Manganiello.
I think he's got to be in the movie for something. I think he would love it. He loves D&D. He's a big D&D nerd in real life.
Yeah.
Joe Manganiello, just super buff. I think last time we talked, we're like, oh, what if he's just a super buff wizard?
Yeah.
Because wizards are typically like super like scrawny and
Yeah,
stuff.
just a hot wizard. Just a hot wizard. Get it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think he would kill it. I think he would be all in.
Oh, he would. You wouldn't even have to pay him. He just like, can I come by? And I'm like,
Yep.
yes,
please do.
You want to write it? You want to write it with us, Will and AJ?
Yeah,
we can hang
Joe
out.
Manganiello, hit us up.
Hey, Joe, hear me out.
Joe, hear us out. Please.
Also, if he didn't want to be in the movie the whole time, just cast him as like Mordenkainen and just be like, look into the multiverse. You know, he looks good bald. Look up Joe Manganiello bald.
I'm sure he does.
No.
I'm just gonna throw out my pick there. I don't know if it's that strong, but I put Kerry Washington.
She could do it. She's a strong choice. Good wizard.
I think she could do it. Nothing much to say about her. She could be a little bit of an older, more wizened character.
Love Scandal.
Yeah.
Great show.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Okay, so quickly we're just gonna run through a couple of pitches for what like the villain or kind of like the main danger of the movie would be.
Yeah,
AJ.
so I already mentioned, like, if we go with like a warlock, like any warlock, honestly, Anthony Ramos or some of the other ones that you picked, I think it could be a nice time to see like the Nine Hells and see some devils and see some demons and stuff. The last one went into like the wizards, the red wizards of Thay, and they were significant villain. I want to see them fight a big monster at the end of the movie.
That'd be great.
That's what I want to see. You know, the last fight in the first movie, Honor Among Thieves, was great. I want to see them fight a giant monster, and I think a demon or a devil would be perfect for that, especially if there's like something at stake. I don't know. I think they got to run down the classic stuff as well.
I think that's good. So that's kind of your pitch of just like it's pretty standard. Give like a monster, like a beholder, like a. Or just...
Yeah, give them something D&D. I think a beholder would be great in the movie.
Just blow the budget on it. Just
put Xanathar in the movie. Xanathar is the most famous beholder. Just put him as, he doesn't even have to be like the main villain, but he can be like someone they interrogate for information or something.
Just Xanathar tied up.
Yeah, and that can be voiced by Jack Black. There we go.
Jack Black, you know what? He did a good Bowser. He can do a better Xanathar. But I like that. Mine was a little bit deeper. My thought was you could do one of two things. You can, I think what D&D did great is it kind of gave you like the generic brand the first time around. Let's make this a Halloween movie. Okay. Let's put this out around Halloween time, because the great thing, and we're going to get into it later, D&D is known for all of its great like horror elements and basically things that you can watch that are scary, spooky, cosmic, gothic, things like that. So I would say you can either just directly do Curse of Strahd, with Henry Cavill as Strahd. That was my casting choice
Okay.
because I think he would do great. But yeah, literally just make it like a Halloween movie, spooky with werewolves and like ghouls and ghosts, and just have like the guy who directed like Annabelle or one of those like Blumhouse studio movies,
Yeah.
like do
A24.
the guy who did Aquaman. The guy who did Aquaman's a horror movie
Oh,
director, but
Juan.
he's yeah, James Wan.
James Wan.
Just have James Wan direct it because he can put out like a good action movie that's also scary. So
Yeah, I think that kind of touches on something that I kind of wish the first movie had done. I I want to see one of these characters die. I know that sounds awful, but I think with a more of a scarier campaign, like either of the one that we're pitching, I think someone has to, because Michelle Rodriguez died at the end of the film, and they're like, oh, spoilers, by the way.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
bring her back.
Too late. You ruined the movie. But yeah, I think something with stakes, like where people, let's say 1 or 2 people die, you could make that Keanu Reeves. He's fighting off a bunch of werewolves, or make the artificer like bite it at some point. Like
Yeah,
that would
make
be
the
pretty.
audience cry.
Yeah, it'd be good. Like Rhys Darby is like the funny guy, and then he dies, and then the rest of the movie gets like really like sullen.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think something, but yeah,
yeah, that or
the
like
villains.
mind flares. Like do like a mind flare plot. Just be like, hey, you have all this magic stuff. Now here's some shit from outer space. All right, here's like a otherworldly alien entity, and they're gonna suck your brains. Like it turns into a
Yeah,
classic horror movie in like fantasy setting.
yeah, I love that. I would be a little bit concerned about the marketability of
That's
that to
true.
some
That is hard to
audience.
sell. I will agree.
Like there are, because you want D&D nerds are gonna go see the movie regardless.
Yeah,
That's the audience we already got. We also want everyone else to come see it, and if
yeah,
they're like, there's a bunch of weird Cthulhu monsters, that does not sound
yeah.
fun.
Aliens versus dragons, I don't think sells well.
Unfortunately, I love it.
Yeah.
Again, what I would have a great time watching that.
Oh, I'd watch it twice.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think my more solid pitch is just do Curse of Strahd and put like Ed Skrein or Henry Cavill in it. He does The Witcher, and The Witcher is basically Strahd but nice, So
yeah.
have at it.
I kind of have like a couple people. They're old. They're all older actors, but I think that they could be like a good voice of some like scary villain, like a big dragon or big demon or something, big devil. Maybe not the main villain like a Strahd, or they could be, depending on what you write. So I said I put Liam Neeson on there. I think
Yep.
that just like his voice over like a dragon or something, I think that'd be pretty intimidating. But I also wrote Gary Oldman on that list as
Oh
well.
my gosh, he'd be great. He's old, but he'd be great.
And yeah, he would definitely be like just the voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Carrie Elwes, who would be more of a funny one, but
Oh my gosh.
he
Yeah,
would be awesome.
yeah, just like the ultimate like Robin Hood as the villain. Yeah, that's great. Carrie
Yeah.
Elways. I love that. That's a good cast. So, all right, so let's run through one more time. For my cast, we have Rhys Darby as the artificer, Maya Hawke as the cleric. Really anybody we want for the fighter.
Just get a big
Donnie
buff.
Yen as the monk. Aldous Hodge as the ranger. John Boyega as the warlock, and Joe Manganiello as the wizard. Possibly some kind of horror movie where they're stuck in Ravenloft or something like that. And then run down your list real quick before we get
Yeah,
into the section.
it's gonna be a little bit different order because I didn't write it in order, unfortunately.
Ugh,
So
how dare you?
Warlock, Anthony Ramos, Ranger. I'll say Joel McHale. Cleric, Gemma Chan. Wizard, Kerry Washington. Fighter, Morford Clark. I'd probably not, but I'd probably grab one of your monks instead. I think monk, it'd be funny. It'd be great. I don't think he'd do it at this point.
I don't think
And then Artificer William Jackson Harper, with a villain being like a Carrie Elvis or a Liam Neeson or Gary Oldman, really anything. With like kind of like a Vernus like campaign, trying to
a
get back
furnace would
someone's
be
soul,
perfect. Yeah.
trying to get back someone's soul or something.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like Avernus would be great because it is the Avernus campaign is the prequel to Baldur's Gate 3, which just won Game of the Year, so people might watch it for that.
There you go. I like that. Going to Avernus. It could be called Dungeons and Dragons: Get Out of Hell. Because the subtitle is so like unimportant, so it could
Yeah.
just be something like that. But no, I like our choices, and for those of you watching and listening, uh, I don't care what you think. So we are going
We do.
to, with that segue, we're going to move into our second topic for today. This is going to take up the second bulk of our episode. So this is a segment we call Tabletop Tourists, and what we're going to do is basically each time we're going to be going through a different campaign setting or realm or demi-plane, and basically tell you things you can do, things you can see, people you can meet, just kind of like the cool, interesting parts of
Yeah, if you wanted to like vacation there or something,
yeah.
what are
Bring
the attractions?
just Chris Pine in a Hawaiian shirt and and his lute.
Dude, if Chris Pine was there, my mom would already be there.
Interesting.
She loves Chris Pine.
We all do, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of. We are going off of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. This is a official Dungeons and Dragons book by Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Basically, it has given us a lot of examples of different settings that you can have a campaign in. We like them a lot.
Yeah.
But AJ, can you tell us a little bit about Ravenloft, at least how it's described in the book? And keep in mind, all opinions are our own. Don't sue us, Hasbro.
Of course, yes. So I'm just going to read a little bit of excerpt from the tour brochure, as it is, for Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So this is from page 5, I think. The page numbers are hard to read on what I'm reading on. A scream shatters the still gloom. Inhuman shapes slip between crumbling tombs. The shadows reach forth. Do instincts and imagination conspire against you? Or have otherworldly evils claimed you, drawing you into the mists of Ravenloft? In the hidden corners of the Shadowfell are nightmare domains that hunger for the brave and the innocent, the ambitious and the wicked. Some call this collection of eerie realms the Land of the Mists, but monster hunters know it as Ravenloft. Terror, magic, mystery, and suspense fill these fractured domains, an infinite gallery of unfolding evils, age-old plots, cursed bloodlines, legendary monsters, and immortal villains. Evildoers from countless worlds regard Ravenloft as their prison. Infamous fighters such as the Lich King Azalen Rex, the unscrupulous scientist Victra Mordenheim, and the diabolical first vampire Strahd von Zarovich. These Dark Lords wield incredible power within their isolated domains, yet they're held captive in eternal torment as victims of malign forces, as known as the Dark Powers.
Ooh, spooky. But yeah, basically Ravenloft is just this dimension where a bunch of Dark Lords have a bunch of, mini pocket dimensions that they rule over.
Right.
Kind of the catch on that, just in short, is you have a Dark Lord. They have some kind of desire. They can never get it because that's the cycle of suffering. And then you can't kill them because basically in a certain amount of time they'll always come back because it's a cycle of suffering.
It's essentially hell for them and anyone else that is trapped there. But yeah, so the interesting thing about Ravenloft as a campaign setting, or the Shadowfell as a dimension, is that there are, as Will said, there's all these different realms, there's these different like areas of it that are all separated by these magical mists. But essentially each of these areas has its own Dark Lord that's being tortured there, and their own people there. They can be as big as countries, or they can be as small as like a building. But all of them kind of are different horror genres. So there's a lot of there's there's your classic like Frankenstein-y inspired one. There's your classic like vampires. There's werewolves, but all of them are kind of separated out. So all of these different realms, while they are all within the mists, within Shadowfell, within Ravenloft, they are all separated out and they do not interact with each other. They're their entire own stories and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect explanation, AJ. And where we're going to start our series is a little place called Barovia. Barovia, of course, is the home of Strad von Zarovich, the first vampire. Sorry for all you Dracula fans. Apparently, he is the first vampire in the multiverse, according to this Dungeons and Dragons book. It is titled The Domain of the First Vampire. It's a lot more gothic horror, with bats and vampires and werewolves, Nosferatus, hags. Hags are a big one. Some of the hallmarks are an undead despot, a notorious haunted stronghold, and a tragic resurrection. Yeah, so basically, Barovia itself, it's about the size of like New York, I would say, is about how big it is, according to like Chris Perkins, who's kind of a writer for Dungeons and Dragons. So it's not huge, but it is reasonably big, and it's run by Strad von Zarovich. And if you know Strad von Zarovich, Strati, as I'll call him, uh, as AJ and I know, he's
Or
just a
Stratty.
Strat on. Yeah. That was gross. So,
Great
but
job, bud.
Strahd is basically this sort of conqueror, this warrior from, let's just say, Russia, because that's what his accent is.
Very Slavic inspired, yeah.
It's very, very Slavic inspired, and he was this conqueror. And basically, in one of his greatest battles, he claims this land as its own, names it after his parents, calls it Barovia, and invites everybody out to live with him. They all die. And basically, he is just alone, except for his brother Sergei, who he hates, and Tatiana, a village girl who he comes to love in this little countryside of his. And of course, Tatiana does not love him. He loves his brother Sergei because she's, I don't know, a human being who sees that Strahd is not that appealing. He's actually a very cruel, sort of angry man. And so Strahd, being jealous, ends up making a deal with the Dark Powers and goes to the Amber Temple to, I don't know, make deals. He's doing deals on Wall Street. He's checking his credit score, and they say, "Yeah, you got to become a vampire." And he's like, "Okay." So on Sergei and Tatiana's wedding night, he kills Sergei, drinks his blood, and is like, "Hey, Tatiana, now we can be together, right?"
Yeah,
And
just
she jumps,
blood
yeah, blood
streaming from his mouth.
streaming,
He's
and her
like, yeah,
response is just to jump out a window and die. So,
yep.
you know what? She takes it well. Um, and then,
Yeah, I'd say
yeah,
so.
and then he just Strahd after that becomes a monster and rules over Barovia for 1,000 years. I don't know if 1,000 is really true, but it's a just long time.
But we're here to talk about it. We're not here to get all the lore correct.
Yeah, yeah. But that's just kind of the idea of Strahd. And basically, he believes that, he is the land is him, it belongs to him. And so pretty much everything in Barovia belongs to Strahd. And he really just wants to be reunited with his one true love, Tatiana. Um,
Yeah.
His one true love, not
Yes.
Tatiana's one true love
No.
being him. But that's kind of his big goal, is to kind of get her soul reincarnated into someone else and get her to fall in love with him, which is kind of tough. This guy could take some lessons from the movie Hitch. But
That's a
sadly, there's
reference.
yeah, from the movie Hitch.
You all know that
Unfortunately,
movie.
yeah, there's no DVD players in Barovia, unfortunately.
Oh man.
But basically, that's the setting. He can pull anything he wants into Barovia using the mists, and he can also trap anyone inside. Some things to do here. There's plenty of options for this sort of campaign setting. There's plenty of like werewolf societies you can either fight or join up with. You could probably even become a werewolf. There's also were ravens. Yeah, that's right. You're kind of scratching the bottom of the barrel when you get down to birds. But they're pretty cool. The were ravens can give you plenty of side missions to fight Strahd. Also, there's hags. You can go slap a hag.
Yep. Hags are like old woman that basically like the witch in the wood. They're like
Yeah.
that, like the one that tried to eat Hansel and Gretel. That's a hag.
Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, Strahd's basically this evil guy. Something you can do if you want to kill him, as I imagine most people will want to. You can start recovering some artifacts, some holy artifacts. Because he's a vampire. Anything holy will kill him. Anything related to the sun will kill him. Side note: that's actually why he uses magic to blot out the sun. And
Yep.
now basically the entire countryside is in darkness, and daytime is basically just muggy and cloudy, and there's no real light. You could also work on restoring some hope, possibly being a really good influence to the community, starting a rec center, for the kids. You could start a church food drive. I'm kidding, of course, but you could just be a good person. Just make
Yeah, the only churches in town are a little fucked up.
Yeah, they're a little culty. Colt 45 and a 2 zigzag.
Yeah, everything in this town is kind of fucked up. The the other thing to do in Barovia is to get out of Barovia. That's kind of the main challenge that's presented to a lot of different adventures. Essentially, like, again, the mists are so mysterious. You can be pulled in at any time from anywhere, and you might find yourself trapped there.
Yeah.
Which, you might as well you could either make the best of it, or you could try to escape, which is very difficult. The mists are, if Strahd thinks that you're interesting, he's gonna basically close those mists right up and give you a locked door that if you try to go in, you will die if you go into the mists. So
yeah, I mean, that's basically the thing with Strahd. He's just a bored dude. He's really bored.
Really, yeah, egotistical, immortal, like, also sexy. I think that's an important part of his character.
Well, he's a vampire. I think that has to be the case, even if he is the first,
Yeah, no, he, like, Strahd von Zarovich, like, as much as he's a douchebag, but he's also kind of a hot douchebag. But then he tries to, like, kill you and your friends, and so you don't like him very much.
Yeah, that's really a difficult portion. That, and he wants to basically force anyone with the soul of Tatiana to marry him.
Yeah,
so
we'll
that's
get
kind
into
of
that.
we'll go, wait for that.
We're getting
But yeah, you can also do some monster hunting. You can actually even do jobs for Strahd, because it'll just be like, hey, you guys seem interesting. Tell you what, come do a job for me, or literally I'll just watch you do something and struggle and then fly away because I be the count and I love to count.
Count.
Yeah. Other things you can do, you can hunt Strahd too if you want to kill him. Usually that's pretty hard. You're gonna have to talk to some specific individuals, and we'll get into that. But let's get into some of the cool places that you can visit. AJ, what's number 1 on the list?
All right, so number 1 is Castle Ravenloft. So Castle Ravenloft is Strahd's castle. He named it after his mother, whose name was like something to do with the ravens. And so he's like, I'm gonna call the country after my dad, and I'm gonna call the castle after my mom. And the castle is such an iconic piece of D&D lore in this world and all that stuff that's the reason that this entire section of the world, all these horror elements are called Ravenloft. This is Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. That's not just the castle. The castle is what it is, and the rest of all the different Barovia and the other places are named after Ravenloft itself, as it says, as the hunters know it. So there's more detail on Castle Ravenloft in the Curse of Strahd campaign guide if you want to really dive into what the castle is. But
Oh yeah,
essentially, it's a vampire's castle. That's what it
yeah.
is.
We could honestly do a whole like mini series on just Curse of Strahd, but we're
Oh
not
yeah,
going to today.
no. There's also the Abbey of Saint Markovia, which is just like it's an abbey. It's like a little holy place, but it's a little fucked up because there's
Yeah.
like people that want to do. Oh man, I'm blanking.
There's like it's basically the island of Dr. Moreau in there. Basically there's experiments where people and animals get like mixed together, stuff like that. Also, there's an abbot or a priest, and he likes to think that he's bringing light to the world, but he's bringing a little bit of shade, if we're being honest.
Yep.
Although I do count this as one of the quote unquote safe places in Barovia, just because there is technically like it has a holy aura about it. It is, somewhat protected in a way from Strahd.
Yeah. Uh, so next up we got the Valakai, which is a little section of Barovia that is led. It's led by a dude named let me tell you,
Vlahovic.
yeah, Blagovic, and he's basically like he really really wants it to be happy.
Yeah, because
Uh,
he basically thinks that all of Barovia is doomed because Strahd is eliminating hope, and he basically is saying like, if you try to keep hope and you try to like force happiness, well, that's actually fighting back all of these bad juju demons,
yeah,
and things like that. But really, he's basically forcing people to have fun, which is like your mom on a road trip. Like it just doesn't work,
yeah.
and everyone gets angry. And
It's
he
it's a little
actually,
disturbing. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of festivals and everyone has to be happy all the time, but it drains resources and just kind of you can't have happiness without sadness because you don't know what it is without it. That's what Inside Out taught me. So
good pull,
it's
good pull.
yeah. So
But
it's
yeah, no,
just
it's
yeah,
good because it's actually like if you're not happy, like if you're not like having a great time, you get arrested for like basically like being a naysayer to the whole idea of like festivals and stuff. Really, I think this guy just wants to throw a kegger, but really he's getting blocked up by old Count von Zarovich.
yeah. Next up, we got the village of Barovia, which is the village that surrounds Castle Ravenloft. So we have Castle Ravenloft, which is like the main like capital building, and this is like the capital city. Barovia is the entire thing, but this is like it's like New York, New York. It's Barovia,
Yeah, yeah.
Barovia, which is it's oppressed by like fear, and they're just a lot of people there are super just scared of Strahd. They're super paranoid about that. They don't want to die, but Strahd is big scary villain. He has all the power in the world, in this world at least,
Yeah.
to control everyone. So they're just trying to like be there. They do not like outsiders. If there's an outsider, that's like they're gonna cause issues for them. Like if someone comes in trying to kill Strahd, then Strahd's gonna get angry and like kill some villagers or something. Like they are
Yeah.
just terrified at every opportunity, and
Yeah.
yeah, no one
Let's
wants to be there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the main thing too. Like he basically controls through fear. Like each night, there's like a different monster. Like there's like ghouls or zombies walking around. Every now and then there's like his vampires or vampire spawn just kind of like come around and like hang around with people just as a reminder that, you know, Strahd's the one in charge. Um something that and when he visits town, because there are like opportunities where you can have him like come to town like in his carriage and stuff, it's worse. It's just
Yeah.
worse
Mhm.
because everyone's trying. It's like when you have like a for example, like if the principal's sitting in on a class of yours and everyone's trying to be like on their best behavior. Like it's just a weird tense situation for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Last up in Barovia. I mean, there's just so much to see, but
Yeah,
we're just covering the basics.
just some of the highlights, some of the
Yeah,
zest.
yeah. Again, this is a travel brochure. This is what it is. Is the Amber Temple, which is where you might have heard Will mention it earlier. Will talked about how Strahd, when he was becoming a vampire, he kind of went to make deals with the dark forces in the Amber Temple with a lich. A lich, being in D&D, if you're not aware, is like basically a wizard that wanted immortality, so they became undead so that they could live forever. They're evil things, evil wizards,
Yeah.
evil undead wizards. And so he made a deal with one, um, and let's see, and he is, and that lich still does live there. But this is all of these. This Amber Temple is just a vestige. All these like old evil gods and stuff, and they're trying to just make the world evil because there's so much evil in this world. The priests of Osebus
Yeah, just a bunch of nerds.
are
They're just
there
a bunch
too.
of nerds.
Yeah, it's basically just evil temple with undead things and death. So really fun time, sounds like to me.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah,
I'd visit. But yeah, basically that's where you get your exposition for all like the dark power stuff and like how
yeah,
it works, and if you want to figure out how to fight Strahd and things like that. But let's go into our section of people to see. Obviously, of course, we got Strahd. You know,
yeah,
Strahd is going to be the main thing, and through that you can learn about like his brother Sergey and Tatiana, and also Strahd isn't the only person living up in his castle. He's got like all kinds of like vampire spawn and like people who work for him, like
yeah.
butlers and maids, and like I think he actually has an accountant. I forget the name of him, but Strahd has like an accountant who like looks over
I did
his
not know
ledger,
that.
like
That's funny.
straight up. That's in the Curse of Strahd book, but it's like it's hilarious that like yeah, I'm accountant, and so I present myself as such. So he
I'm Count
presents himself,
Accountant.
yeah, the count accountant. Uh, but he really puts on this air of like, oh, I'm a benevolent lord, but he's straight up a thug. He is just a thug who
Yeah.
is just going to eat you at first notice, which is
Yes.
fine if you're into that sort of thing. But we'd like to live. Um,
Yeah. He's extremely selfish. Uh, like he has all these vampire spawn, but he is not afraid to sacrifice them as long as it meets his goals. Like he he just wants to attain his goals, which is getting Tatiana and all that stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, he is just this evil dude, extremely intelligent,
mhm.
extremely menacing, um, like your classic just evil, like evil vampire lord of
Yeah,
everything.
but let's go into like people who will be your friend, kind of. Um,
Yeah.
So we got,
So
for example, we have, there's actually an interesting group of people called the Vistani. And basically, these are like roaming, like individuals who kind of live in like basically almost like Oregon Trail, like wagon societies.
yeah,
Like they go place to place, and they actually are able to travel anywhere. They can go in and out of the mists whenever they want because Strahd has a little soft spot for him. They did something nice for him once, so he does something nice for them.
yeah,
Um, but one of the main people there is Madame Ava. She is basically a fortune teller. Why did I say it like that? Fortune teller. And what she can do is she actually conspires against Strahd, and she'll tell your fortune on
yep.
how to beat him or where to go in Barovia. Really, this is kind of opportunities as the DM. We haven't really talked about the role of the DM, but you can basically be like, here's where you need to go. Here's your map.
Yep.
Enjoy.
And she has her own goals, like mysterious goals that you're not aren't really made aware of too much, and it's not detailed in the book. The Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft just says like, oh, she has her own goals, but like she has worked with Strahd and she has worked against Strahd, and it just kind of she is looking to do something, and you don't really know what it is, but you just kind of go, you take what you can get, and you take what advantage you can. But yeah,
Yeah, I think personally, it's she wants to start a restaurant chain, and Strahd didn't give her the permit. So Madame Ava's House of
yep.
Mysterious Pancakes really is going to have trouble getting off the ground if she can't get some change in commerce there.
Let's see, Madame Ava's House of Mysterious Pancakes. Mem up.
Mem up, mem up. You know
There
what?
we go.
Do it, and we just ruined that character
Yep,
forever.
that's what
Um,
D&D does.
yep. Um, okay, so I think we got to talk about the man himself, the guy who wrote this book in World.
I actually have a theory, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Van Richten. Now we're going to talk about Van Richten and who Van Richten is. He is the best monster hunter in the entire world. He's Van Helsing. He's also super old. But Van Richten has come to Ravenloft to basically kill Strahd. It's
Yep.
basically his one last job before he retires. He's gonna take on the big bad vampire. Um, Basically, what you can use this guy for, he's just gonna give you tips and tricks on how to fight Strahd. Also, Strahd doesn't like this guy.
Nope.
Obviously, he keeps killing his hellspawn. And really, I always thought it'd be fun, a little Van Richten vampire action. Just turn him into one. Honestly, how hard is it to find him? But it actually is harder than you think to find an old man because I don't know, he's got like tons of like disguises and shields and stuff to like keep him
Yeah.
sort
Again,
of
he's the most
hidden.
experienced monster hunter in the entire world of Ravenloft, Shadowfell, all that stuff. So his full name is Dr. Rudolph Van Richten. Dr.
Oh,
Rudolph Van Richten.
his Christian name.
Yes. Yes. Given to him at birth, the doctor part included. So that is his full name, and it is Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and so it would make sense that he wrote the book, and that's probably what's happening. But I have a crazy theory.
Oh,
Just hear me out. So throughout the book, you kind of see these letters that Van Richten that Rudolph has either received or given out to other people, and you see all these different letters being like his other monster hunter friends, essentially, like so it's like, oh, he's putting like part of his own personal history into it. But there's one letter that I read, one of them that says, hey, all you people, all of you can use the Van Richten name if you want. Like, and he basically says, like, hey, all my friends, you are as much a Van Richten as I am. And so my theory is, it just says Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, doesn't say Rudolph Van Richten. Any of them could have written it.
maybe it was a cookbook, like all of them put different things in.
Someone could have like found his like works after he died and compiled it themselves. Like that's just a crazy theory, not related to Barovia at all. But
you know what? That'll be a good idea for an episode. Just theories. Just theories. Just a game theory.
A game theory.
And
Thank
cut.
You, Matt Pat. Don't sue us, Matt Pat, please.
Please don't. I'd hate to, hunt you down. But
I don't need to kill any more of my heroes.
Yeah, but speaking of like proteges and friends of Van Richten, we actually have Esmeralda, Vistani, monster hunter, who's a protege of old Rudy. I'm gonna call him Rudy because I know his name's Rudolph. I'm just gonna name him Rudy. Rudy Van Rick. So Esmeralda is basically the younger, cooler version of Van Richten. She's like a sword carrying like monster hunter. She basically takes down all types of people. Fun fact about her, she has a prosthetic leg because she lost it to a werewolf. Just a fun character thing. But she is actually a good amount of muscle in the game, where Van Richten's more of the brain. He is a genius when it comes to strategy and how to fight creatures of the night. Esmeralda's the one you call to actually, put the stake in the heart, as it were.
Yep.
So Esmeralda, love her. I think she's a great tool to use in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think she's a badass. She's super cool, super cool. There's a lot of cool Monster Hunter characters in this book, and I think it's a really cool vibe for everything because they can kind of fit into a lot of different stories and stuff. And the way that you kind of weave them in can be any way. They can be like the mentor character that sacrifices themselves, or they can just be like the badass that helps you out, or they're like a rival. There's a lot of different ways that you could play with it, and I think that's cool. Last up, we got the Mad Mage, which I believe that is referring to Exathanter, which is the Lich in the Amber Temple. Is that who it is?
Oh
Or is it?
no!
Oh, this is
Oh
someone
no!
else.
We got
This is
a
someone
we
else.
got a we got a cameo. We got because the Mad Mage is actually drum roll, please. All right, we can't afford a drum roll. Morden Kanan.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't see
Morden
him in the book
Kanan.
at all. All right.
Yeah. The thing about the Mad Mage, basically, straight up, Morden Kanan, who is kind of a famous character in D&D, found his way into Ravenloft on accident.
Yep.
And if you don't know who Morden Kanan is, think Doctor Strange, but with like Tony Stark arrogance, you know?
Huh. Which is just Doctor Strange.
In the first movie. um really it's just him. So Doctor Strange, just think Doctor Strange. He put up a fight against Strahd, lost, basically was lost in like a waterfall, bumped his head and went crazy, I'm pretty sure. And so now he grew his hair out, his fingernails are long, and he's basically, I like to imagine, just the wizard from Shrek 3.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Who's Merlin? He's just Merlin from Shrek 3, just weird and
Been a
crazy now.
long time since I've seen Shrek
Yeah.
3.
But he's got a lot of cool spells. He's got like time stop and things like that. Like he's a mage, like a genuine mage. So that's a lot of fun to play with. That also gives you some good side missions and an opportunity to fight Strahd magically, where a lot of these are kind of like it's more of a physical fight.
Yeah, so those are the different things. I want to take a second to talk a bit about Tatiana. I want to talk more about
What
Tatiana.
about Tatiana, AJ?
So earlier you said she threw herself off the tower because Strahd tried to drank his brother, her fiance's blood, and became a vampire, and then said, "Hey, you want to sex?" And she was like, "No, absolutely not." And then so she killed herself, but she's back.
What? Back?
She's
How?
So Ravenloft as a campaign is torturing all these Dark Lords you heard us mention. It's torturing them, and the way that it tortures Strahd is he is obsessed with finding Tatiana. She's the reason he became a vampire, and he wants to, make her his, because that's how you start a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make her his. So the way that the dark forces torture him is they keep reincarnating her in different forms. So sometimes she's just like a random village girl. Sometimes she's, a badass hunter. I think there's an example where like she can be Esmeralda or something like that.
That's true.
She can be a set of identical twins. Like she basically reincarnates every time, and every single time Strahd pursues her and wants to, bone. He really, really wants to get her because he thinks that's the cure to all of the things that he's unhappy about. He thinks that can get him out. Like that's the one thing that's eluded him for all these years. He has all the power in the world, but he doesn't have anyone to share it with.
Yeah. And that's half the battle, honestly. But no, the whole idea of Tatiana and her soul carrying on, that is interesting because pretty much everyone's soul is locked in Barovia. They can't move on. So basically, everyone who's ever died in Barovia cannot move on. So they always go into the body of a newborn baby after they die. Or, they wait a little bit and they drift and then they go back in.
Well, there's also a bunch of empty husks around that are just soulless people that are just basically just fodder for living in this world. If you have a character that you are playing and like they die or something, but they come back to life, Tatiana soul, maybe it was about to reincarnate, so it reincarnated into that adventurer's body. That's one of the plot hooks that is established in the game. Like there's a bunch of these husks, and the souls can go anywhere, and not everyone has one. It's basically like a soul shortage, is essentially what there is.
Yeah, there's not enough souls for all the people in Barovia. Um, and honestly, you know what? I get it. Not
Mhm.
everyone can get a job. Not everyone can get a soul in this economy. Please.
Yeah, the economy of Barovia, which is,
Yeah, I like to
dominated.
think it's actually pretty stable. I
Yeah,
let's
I
be
mean,
honest.
I think
Uh,
it's stable bad.
yeah, it's
I think
it's
it's a
it,
bad kind of
it's
stable.
it's steady. It's
It's like,
consistent.
right, it's like we're in like the 2008 like housing crisis, but like we never got out of it. So like it's always been, a depression, but it
Yeah,
stays there.
yeah, and that's not half bad. But I'll just ask you before we kind of get into our wrap up portion. What would you say is kind of your favorite part of Barovia, AJ?
Of Barovia in particular, I think I really think that the story of Strahd is interesting to me. I mean, that's the most basic part, but just I think he's one of the most popular, one of the most famous Dungeons and Dragons villains, and seeing his iconic form, like come into this and take over this world, and I don't know, there's a lot of like really cool gothic elements, and the fact that he's like a tortured soul with like Tatiana always around, like yeah, I want to I want to play this so I can kill him, but then he just come back to life anyway. So uh, I think it's interesting. How about you, Will?
I think it's similar. I love the character of Strahd, but more because he's sort of like this constant presence that you can always feel in the story, even if you're not
Yeah,
directly, sort of interacting with him. I think it's always important to realize that he is everywhere. Like he controls the land. Like he can see through, like Barovia, side note, is filled with wolves. There's wolves everywhere, wolves and
sure.
ravens. And he can see through the eyes of all of them. So he always has constant eyes on the players. He knows what they're doing pretty much. Like it's very hard to keep secrets from him. Um, Basically, he has so much control through fear on what that is. But also, I think there's a lot to play with as far as like what Strahd can be. It's like, well, maybe is he loved by certain like villages and feared by others? Like, is he kind of pitting them against each other? How does he feel about like the hags and how they run their business? How does he sort of work through all of this? And I think kind of the best like power play that you can do with him in the game is have you ever heard the thing of like Strahd invites you to dinner?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, something that can happen in the game is that Strahd invites you to Castle Ravenloft for dinner and conversation. And basically, uh, he makes no actual attack against you, but he makes sure that he's in control the entire time. Like
yep.
he is very like front and center, like this is who I am, and honestly, you don't want to get on my bad side. Um, and sometimes he'll be like interested, like, oh, maybe you can come join me or do something dark, or maybe you would make like a great like concubine, or I could turn you. Like he very rarely goes to I'll immediately kill you. Like he likes to play, and
Yeah,
like he's kind of like a cat with a mouse. Like he like bats it around and sees what happens, and the chances
yeah.
are you'll kill yourself before he actually gets to you.
And 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 if you're playing an adventure where the goal isn't just to kill Strahd, maybe you have a secondary objective, like maybe you can worm your way into doing that. Like there was one suggestion in the book where like he has a pretty big library. Maybe there's a book in there that you need to solve this other problem outside of Barovia, and you need to one get the book and two convince him to let you leave. And maybe that doesn't entitle just killing him because, as I said, he will just come back eventually anyway. And maybe there's other people in the world that in the world of Barovia that want to take power. I think the biggest thing to know is that Barovia is big.
Yeah,
Like it's not just like the city and the castle. Like there's other like it's its own mini country. Like it's a whole countryside. Like There's a lot of stuff there, and Strahd is in control of it all. He controls your ability to leave,
Hmm.
most importantly. So
Yeah. So definitely scary. I would love to play it someday, and I hope you guys would too.
yeah,
But yeah, that was Tabletop Tourists.
yeah.
Um,
Next time we'll
and
visit somewhere else and go on vacation, and we'll see
yeah,
what else there is to see.
yeah, AJ, what are you going to be up to until then?
Until then, well, yeah, no, I've been kind of doing a lot of like thinking about this this world, whatever. I don't
World?
know.
What kind of world? Tell me
This
about this, AJ. Tell me about it, brother.
so like I'm a nerd. I think it's clear from the fact that I am one of the two hosts of this podcast, that I am a
Preach.
huge nerd. Um, and so I love superheroes. I love all things superheroes from when I was a kid, and
Oh.
I've always had the idea of like, hmm, I really once I started playing D&D, I was like, wow, I would love to like reflavor this into a superhero campaign because a lot of D&D is fantasy. We just talked a lot of gothic horror elements and stuff. There's not a lot of just like modern day sources out there. And so I was like, what if we did like a superhero one? And let's say, you know, it takes place in like the 1950s. And I brought this up, and I brought this up to you, Will, as you remember. And you
Hmm.
were like, dude, I already got a whole book of stuff for to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why it saddens me actually, because you stole my idea, AJ. And quite frankly,
You know, I think we had it around the same time and just didn't talk about it.
yeah, and you know what? I came up with the title, so I think it's fair to say that yes, we did occasionally start working on our own Dungeons and Dragons game based around superheroes. And sure, we're gonna change up the game types, but yeah, we basically wanted to create something that kind of goes back to like the goofy, like golden age of superheroes, like mainly like the 50s and 60s, and
Yep.
maybe something in the modern age. We're working on a story there. Um, Really, it could take form anyway, like narrative wise. It could have been a movie, it could have been a show, it could have been a book, but we chose Dungeons and Dragons because we're hot like that.
Yeah, that's a word that describes both of us in equal measure.
All right, don't undersell it. Say it confidently. All right.
Yes, we are hot and sexy, and we are just the coolest of nerds. But yeah, so you know, I had this idea, and you were like, I already had this idea. You, as you said, I stole it from you. So I kind of want to like throw it on over to you because a lot of the lore that we've kind of discussed came from you. Like this is really your world that I've added onto. Is kind of
Ah,
how I
yes.
view it. Eventually, it'll be both of our worlds, but as for right now, it is Will's world that AJ has meddled with. So why don't you hit us with like the basic overview of what's going on? So you already said 50s and 60s and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't want to get into it too much. I think
Okay.
we'll be able to talk about it as the series continues. But basically, my whole pitch is like, well, what if you basically flesh out your own superhero universe, starting in like the 30s, and then you kind of basically kind of have like that fun, like almost Incredibles, like kitschy, like cartoony effect, but somewhat real, you know? So, uh, yeah, my superhero story kind of starts in the 1930s and ends in the 1960s, and basically it follows the story of the Everymen. And the Everymen is basically the premier superhero team of America and the world. Its original members being the street fighting vigilante known as the Hornet, the American superhero flag bearer, the elastic enigma known as Stretch. And then you have the cowboy outlaw, um, as well as the speedster Thunderbolt. But yeah, basically, I just came up with a superhero team that fought in World War II against heavy, heavy odds against them, but still were able to succeed. And then basically, gives the opportunity for the 1950s to be this boom time for superheroes. And that's really where we take place. Cities like New York, Chicago, really around the world, wherever you need it to be. And the fact is, you can create your own superhero. You can have your own powers that you create within reason of the rules. You can even join the Everymen. You can start your own team. Really, you have endless options. I really wanted you to be able to play with that in this kind of campaign module that I'm putting together. And it is kind of a campaign module because I do have
Yeah.
sort of set story for you to go through. And we do have a lot of story to get through for sure. Just a quick overview. We have the World War II era um, of the Everymen, where you can either play as one of the characters or create your own and be part of the international superhero agenda known as the Liberators. So you can work as that. You can be in the 1950s, the golden age, the real golden age, and kind of be one of the many of hundreds of costumed heroes throughout that time. Or you could kind of go into the 60s, where things are getting a little bit more politicized and a little bit more jaded. Or, and we're working on this, is more of the modern era
Yeah.
of superheroes. And this is going to basically be like a more kind of fight of liberation versus fascism. The future we create is one that's kind of a little dark. So we will kind of see what happens there. I'm not going to Kevin Feige the whole thing, but I'm excited to kind of show what we
Yeah.
have in the future.
The most exciting part of it for me, and the most exciting part of D&D is the way that players can impact the story. Is that, like, if you play these characters, that will change the narrative. So the reason that the modern day is kind of the one that we haven't fleshed out as much as the earlier days is because we're kind of waiting to see how, the games that we play shape out, and the way that all the decisions are made in that kind of, they all will turn out in a certain way which will change the story for the future. It'll There are certain events that will probably still happen, but overall there are so many different ways that you can impact the world. Even the reason that we talked about, mostly focused today on Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft instead of The Curse of Strahd, is because I like to think of it as just kind of this more of like a setting. This is a setting that your characters will take place in. These are events that will happen. These are
Yeah,
events that can happen.
they
But
are
this is
set points in time.
right. But this is where you can fit in, and you can do pretty much anything in that time. You can do pretty much anything. If we play a game where an important hero dies, then I guess that becomes canon for our game.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be canon for everyone's game, but
Yeah, people can homebrew and change it as much as they like, but that's the kind of the thing about the like the hero story. It's like, well, sometimes this is what it turns into. It's very comic booky. Like, people get lost, or sometimes we win the day and it's like a giant victory.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's gonna be really fun. And we're probably gonna be using this podcast, and we've also been doing it in our personal lives as well. It's just like brainstorming like cool new heroes, cool new plot points and stuff. And
Oh yeah.
right now I'm working on I'm gonna hopefully run like a 4-shot game set in this world for some of our friends as well. And hopefully Will's gonna be one of those players and stuff. So you contribute to the story however he wants to. But
I'm gonna be OP. I'm just gonna be super powered. I'm gonna be Superman.
that's
Superman
kind of the
exists
point.
in our universe, and it's gonna be great.
Yes. Well, there's, not to spoil too much, but there are plenty of Supermen around. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as we kind of said at the beginning of this podcast, this is for us. This is a chance for us to kind of talk and ramble about all this nerdy stuff. So if you did listen, I mean, I guess thank you. But
Yeah.
again,
Listen,
like,
we're just starting out, so you got to set that bar real low. All right.
yeah. Yep. Yep, absolutely. As low as we can possibly make it, because you know, we can only go up from here. I mean, again, this is just so we have an outlet to do this. And if you enjoy our ramblings as well, great, good for you. You know, keep listening, I guess.
Yeah,
I
if
can't
not,
stop
kick
you.
rocks, kid. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been going for almost like probably an hour and a half right by
Yeah,
now. So
this is the show.
this is what it's going to be, and we're going to do. We have all sorts of different things planned for the future. So
You're gonna love it. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna fill you up with all kinds of emotions.
oh, it's going to fill you up with something. That's for sure.
But you're gonna get filled for
Yeah,
sure.
filled with our voices. I guess. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry if you're watching this. I'm sorry, Ma.
My parents, I hope you didn't watch this. I
Yeah.
have not told you about this, and I don't plan to, so please never see this.
Anyway, this has been Accountability Score Improvement. Thank you again for joining us for this first episode. If you did, if you like what you see, depending on where this is, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Or we'll kill you.
Yeah, I've been Will,
I've been AJ.
and we'll see you in the next one. ASIP, go! Okay.
Take a sip of us.
Stop recording.